Hello and welcome to India Business Hour. I'm Ashmit Kumar and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. Monetary Policy Committee keeps rates unchanged for the 7th consecutive policy, sticks to 7% GDP growth projection for this fiscal. RBI Governor says inflation, the elephant in the room, has now gone for a walk. Adds that the central bank will remain nimble on liquidity management. RBI Governor calls on banks and other regulated entities to give highest priority to governance. The stern message follows strict action by the regulator in the recent past on those flouting the rules. Sensex and Nifty end flat after RBI's status quo policy. Both indices gain 1% for the week. Mid-cap index gains 4%, marking the biggest weekly gain in 7 months.
I want to apologize to all our customers who were affected quite badly over the weekend.
Vistara CEO Vinod Kannan apologizes to passengers for the recent flight disruption, says around 20 flights per day could be seen disrupted this month, but adds that he is hopeful of restoring normalcy by the month of May. That's a CNBC TV18 exclusive. Vistara CEO says pilots going on sick leave was not a mark of protest, but normal for the end of the financial year. Admits that the airline should have planned better for this. Says that the airline is open to discussing pilot reservations over rostering and new contracts. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen meets Chinese government officials and business leaders, calls on China to address concerns surrounding overcapacity and encourages market-oriented reforms. The Supreme Court transfers to itself 27 pleas challenging the 28% GST imposition on real money gaming. These pleas are pending across 9 high courts. The CJI has said that it would be better for the Supreme Court to hear the case and deliver an authoritative ruling. The court likely to hear the batch of applications on the 1st of May. Congress unveils its election manifesto 2 weeks ahead of the Lok Sabha elections, promises a nationwide caste census, daily wage of 400 rupees for Manrega workers and stable personal tax rates, Jammu and Kashmir statehood restoration, legal MSP guarantee and a law allowing civil unions for couples from the LGBTQIA community also mentioned in the manifesto. Defence Minister Rajnath Singh tells Network 18 that India wants to maintain cordial relations with all its neighbours, but anyone trying to foment terrorism on Indian soil will not be spared. Adds that soon the police will take care of law and order in Jammu and Kashmir and the troops will be withdrawn gradually. United Nations Human Rights Council adopts a resolution calling for Israel to be held accountable for war crimes in Gaza. Israel promises new steps to increase humanitarian aid after a warning from the US President Joe Biden. More than 33,000 Palestinians have been killed so far, according to the Hamas-run Health Ministry. Global hospitality major Hyatt is bullish on India. CEO Mark Hoplamazian sees more room for growth as India is under-hoteled. Also adds that demand has outpaced supply globally, making prices favorable for the company. That's an exclusive. Well, the big story this evening, the Reserve Bank has held key policy rates for the 7th time in a row. This was expected. The MPC, in a 5-1 majority, decided to keep the repo rate unchanged at 6.5%. The central bank stuck to its earlier GDP growth forecast of 7% for FY25. This is contrary to market expectations of a potential upgrade to its forecast. Now, addressing a press conference, Governor Shaktikanta Das said that inflation, which was the elephant in the room for the economy for the last 2 years, has gone out for a walk and appears to be returning to the forest. He, however, stressed on the need to remain vigilant on food prices. The RBI governor also called on banks and other regulated entities to give highest priority to governance. The stern message has followed strict action by the regulator in the recent past on those flouting these rules.
Now, 2 years ago, around this time, when CPI inflation had peaked at 7.8% in April 2022, The elephant in the room was inflation. The elephant has now gone out for a walk and appears to be returning to the forest. We would like the elephant to return to the forest and remain there on a durable basis. In other words, it is essential in the best interest of the economy that CPI inflation continues to moderate and aligns to the target on a durable basis. Till this is achieved, our task remains unfinished. Banks, NBFCs and other financial entities must continue to give highest priority to quality of governance and adherence to regulatory guidelines. The Reserve Bank has also been engaging with the regulated entities and various stakeholders for simplifying its regulations and reducing compliance burden. As part of this endeavor, the recommendations of the Regulations Review Authority RRA 2.0 constituted by the Reserve Bank have been largely implemented.
So how did the markets respond? Well, the sensex and Nifty ended the day flat after the RBI status quo policy, but bank stocks and mid-caps saw healthy gains. The mid-cap index clocked the 10th straight day of gains. For the week, the mid-cap index is up 4%, marking the biggest weekly gain in 7 months. Sensex and Nifty are up 1% up this week. Well, the big newsmaker this evening, the CEO of Vistara, Kannan, has apologized to passengers after the airline was forced to cancel more than 100 flights this week. Speaking exclusively to Shireen Bhan, Kannan said that Vistara could see further disruptions of around 20 flights per day till the end of this month. He is hopeful, however, of restoring normalcy by the month of May. Kannan also said that pilots going on sick leave was not a mark of protest, but is rather normal for the end of the financial year. However, he did admit that some pilots have apprehensions over the roster and new contracts and promised for more dialogue and a town hall to address those concerns.
I want to apologize to all our customers who were affected quite badly over the weekend. It's definitely not Vistara is known for, and we hope that we will bounce back, and we are bouncing back. So to give you an idea, yes, we used to operate about 350 flights a day. We are shy of that by about 5%. So we are short by about 20 flights or so every day. But these flights have been cancelled mainly to provide a little bit more buffer.
Why have pilots chosen to go on sick leave en masse? How many pilots have actually come to the management raising concerns over compensation? Let's break this down. How much of this is compensation related? How much of it is related to scheduling and rostering issues?
The reason why we had this whole situation over the weekend, let me break it down for you. We've been growing pretty rapidly. Over the last month, we've taken delivery of 3 or so additional aircraft. And what happens is every month we come up with rosters to crew these flights for pilots and cabin crew. We did have a roster for the month of March as well, but unfortunately it was quite stretched, which basically meant that we did not have enough buffer or enough resilience in the network. And what also happened was through the month of March, we had a few operational disruptions. For example, we had bird strikes, we had some aircraft down for maintenance, and we also had some ATC delays. Now, when such things happen, it affects the rosters of the pilots, and the rosters get broken up. And since we did not have enough buffer or standby, we were not able to crew the flights fast enough. And then it started snowballing because we had to wait for the next set of crew to come in, and so on and so forth. So the point that you made about sick leave and pilots calling in sick, I have to say that actually towards the end of the financial year in March, sick leave for us usually goes up because that's the end of the year. And that is a normal trend. We had planned for that. Maybe it was slightly higher than that, but that was not the main reason why this happened. I think on a planning level, we should have done better.
You're essentially saying that the pilots going on leave is part of what happens at the year end. This was not a sign of protest. Some degree may have been, but pilots going on sick leave was something that the management had already factored in, but clearly not planned as effectively as it ought to have. So this was not a mark of protest. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, what I'm saying is that there is, we are aware that there's certain feedback and certain concerns, whether it's with rostering or whether it's with contracts, and I'll come to that later. But I think fundamentally for us, we should have planned better, and my team takes responsibility for this. It's a situation that should and could have been avoided.
What are the options that you're considering? Because the challenge is that you're moving now from 70 hours of guaranteed pay down to 40 hours, which is what has caused some consternation with certain sections of the pilot community at Vistara. So how do you address that?
Just to clarify again, the questions or the communication that you're talking about was essentially to clarify that if pilots do not sign up to the new contract, they will not be transitioned into it and therefore into the merged entity. But let's go back to the question that you're asking. There are few sets of concerns, or two broad sets of concerns that pilots have had. One is around rostering, around scheduling, and about how they operate their flights. And on this aspect, rostering is something that is always quite contentious. There are various sections of pilots with various lifestyles. There are some who have families who prefer to stay at their home base. There are others who are younger who prefer to travel out and be outside for much longer periods of time. And of course, we can't have different systems for each set of pilot. So in fact, we were one of the first airlines in the country to introduce an automated system where pilots could bid for what kind of lifestyles they want. If someone wants to go on a flight, say from Delhi to Bombay and then come back, they could assign this and they could indicate this as their lifestyle, which is preferred. So having done all this, we know that there is still room for improvement. And we are in discussion and constant dialogue with our pilots. In fact, we're going to have another town hall where we're going to ask them what they would like to see with the rostering system and how we can improve this. And therefore, based on that, we will take a cue. And that's why the rosters for May, we hopefully will incorporate some of this feedback that the pilots will have. So that's the first aspect in terms of scheduling and rostering. Around the second aspect, which is around the contract, the new contract, based on the average amount of hours that we fly today, which is around the numbers that we're talking about, which is 70 to 75 hours, we believe that the majority of the pilots should be better off. But yes, there would be circumstances or situations where perhaps certain groups of pilots may have some apprehensions around this. And for these pilots, we'll have to see what we can do in order to make this transition slightly easier for them. So that's something we're open to, and that's something that we're discussing with the pilots as well.
You said you're hopeful that by the end of the week or by next week, the current phase of disruptions will be a thing of the past. Do you feel confident of being able to do that? Or do you believe that you may have to continue with rationalized operations through the month of April and perhaps through May?
We might have to rationalize our operations and scale it back by a little bit. I think that's definitely possible. But what I'm trying to highlight is that it's something that will be planned. We will take care of passengers who are affected perhaps on these flights. And hopefully by the month of May, we will be able to go back to normal operations and schedule.
Well, Chandrasekhar Ghosh is set to retire as the Managing Director and CEO of the Bandhan Bank. His retirement will come into effect from the 9th of July 2024. Remember, the board of the bank had approved Ghosh's reappointment for the 3 years in November of 2023. Now, Pi Platforms, backed by Paytm founder Vijay Shekhar Sharma, has launched a shopping app on the Open Network for Digital Commerce, or ONDC. According to Money Control, Paytm does not own any shares in Pi Platforms. However, the Pi Shop application has been developed by the fintech major's parent entity, 197 Communications. This after Paytm e-commerce rebranded itself as Pi Platforms last month. Supreme Court has transferred to itself 27 applications challenging the 28% GST imposition on real money gaming. These pleas have been pending across 9 high courts. The CJI has said that it would be better for the Supreme Court to hear the case and deliver an authoritative ruling. The court is likely to hear the batch of applications on the 1st of May. The Aditya Birla Group is on an expansion spree. The group's market capitalization has also seen a sharp rise in the last 1 year. Nimesh is joining us now with a deep dive on the Birla Group.
The group has added 2 lakh crores in market cap in the last 1 year, and now they're commanding a market cap of 7 lakh crores. So that's the kind of market cap addition they've done in the last 1 year. But when I'm saying they're doing the right moves, let me go across individual companies. The first stock on my list is Vodafone Idea. All eyes will be on the board meet tomorrow, where the promoters are going to infuse 2,075 crores. They've already taken a shareholder approval to infuse 20,000 crores into the company. So it looks like the capex and 5G expansion finally will be on the cards as far as Vodafone Idea is concerned. What has the stock done? The stock is almost doubled in the last 1 year. So that's the first group, first company in that group. Now the second group which has done, which has made a right noise is Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail. The stock has been a relative underperformer compared to the peers, but now on April 1st, the company announced a vertical demerger of Mundra Lifestyle as well as the fashion businesses into separate entities. And interestingly, on that day itself, the stock rallied 15%. And just a few days before that, government of Singapore actually converted their warrants into equity. What has the stock done in the last 1 year? Just 13%. So, and in fact, it's been trading at a discount to the peers as well. Look at Aditya Birla Fashion on FY26 price to earning, trading at 33 times versus Trent, which is quoting at almost 90 times. So it looks like now they're making the right moves in that particular company. The third stock company in my list is Ultratech Cement. Recently, they have reaffirmed their position as the #1 cement player in India. They want to focus on capacity expansion, and they've announced at 32,000 crores of capex as far as Ultratech Cement is concerned. What has the stock done in the last 1 year? The stock is up 30%. The next company or the next stock in my list is Grasim. This is going to be a big game changer for the group, is what a lot of analysts believe. They've announced the launch of the paints business, which is Birla Opus. They're guided for a 10,000 crores of revenue and profitability in the next 3 years. What has the stock done in the last 1 year? The stock is up almost 48%. But this is one stock where a lot of analysts are bullish on. The other group company which I'm focusing on is Hindalco. Well, the stock has actually come off from the highs recently after the company announced an cost overrun in one of the Novelis subsidiary. But confidentially, they've filed for an IPO, and they're looking for an Novelis IPO later this year with a valuation of at least $1 billion. So that is again something to focus on as far as that group is concerned. That's what has the stock done? The stock is up 42% in the last 1 year. The next stock on my list is Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC. It's the 6th largest AMC in that group within India. Recently, the promoters sold 11.5% stake just to bring the stake to 75%, which is the minimum public float norm. What has that stock done in the last 1 year? It's up around 42% in the last 1 year. And the last stock in that group is Aditya Birla Capital. Now, again, this has done a smart move here as well. Recently, they announced an amalgamation of Aditya Birla Finance to create a largest unified operating NBFC. This has largely been done to skip the public listing, which is required as per the RBI norms. And in fact, ever since the new CEO took over, Vishakha Mule, the stock has actually doubled ever since she took over, which is up around 130%. So across group companies, it looks like they're making the right noise. But look at the overall financial picture of this group. In terms of 5-year revenue CAGR, Aditya Birla Capital has done a 22% revenue CAGR. Aditya Birla Fashion has done 11%. But the lowest in that group is Vodafone Idea with just 8% revenue growth in the last 5 years. But look at the profit CAGR of within the group companies. Again, the highest has come in Aditya Birla Capital, 47%, whereas the lowest has come in Hindalco, which is around 11%. So again, they've done a decent job as far as the profit CAGR is concerned within the group companies. Now the overall debt picture, that's been a big concern for them, right? The biggest pain point is Vodafone Idea, still sitting on 2.4 lakh crores of debt. The next big is Grasim, followed by Hindalco, and again Aditya Birla Fashion also sitting on 9,000 crores of debt. So it looks like finally, Aditya Birla Group is trying to get the mojo back.
Right, so a strong showing there by the AB Group. Here's some international news now. The United Nations Human Rights Council has adopted a resolution calling for Israel to be held accountable for war crimes in Gaza. The Council has also demanded a halt to all arms sales to Israel, citing warnings of a genocide in its war on Gaza. Meanwhile, reports have said that Israeli forces fired tear gas at worshippers who were protesting against the war at Al-Aqsa Mosque. More than 33,000 Palestinians have been killed so far, according to the Hamas-run Health Ministry. Meanwhile, Israel has promised to take new steps to increase humanitarian aid in Gaza. This comes after US President Joe Biden issued a stern warning to Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu to protect civilians and aid workers in the region. In a phone conversation, Biden gave Netanyahu an ultimatum, saying that if Israel does not protect civilians in Gaza, the US support will not continue. He also underscored the need for an immediate ceasefire.
Despite important steps that Israel has taken to allow assistance into Gaza, the results on the ground are woefully insufficient and unacceptable. President Biden spoke a short while ago with Prime Minister Netanyahu. He underscored as well that an immediate ceasefire is essential to stabilize and improve the humanitarian situation and protect innocent civilians, and he urged Prime Minister Netanyahu to empower his negotiators to conclude a deal without delay.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has flagged China's industrial overcapacity, citing that there are growing concerns over the global economic fallout. Speaking at an American Chamber of Commerce event in China, Yellen highlighted that China is too large to export its way to rapid growth and would benefit by reducing excess industrial capacity, which is pressurizing other economies.
Overcapacity isn't a new problem, but it is intensified. And we're seeing emerging risks in new sectors. Direct and indirect government support is currently leading to production capacity that significantly exceeds China's domestic demand. China is too large to export its way to rapid growth. And if policies are oriented only at generating supply and not also at generating demand, global spillovers will result.
And coming up on India Business Hour, the Congress unveils its election manifesto 2 weeks ahead of the Lok Sabha elections, promises a caste census, MSP law, among others. Details when we come back. And you can also catch all CNBC TV 18's news and updates on Facebook, X, Threads, Instagram, and JioCinema. Well, the global slowdown in EV demand has prompted Ford to revise its production plans. The auto major has delayed the planned launches of 3 Ro EVs in Canada and its next-generation electric pickup truck built in Tennessee. The company also has announced that it was boosting its hybrid electric vehicle offerings by 2030. The company is aiming to offer hybrid powertrains across its gas-powered vehicles lineup. Meanwhile, Apple laid off more than 600 employees in February in 8 different facilities in the U.S., according to the filings with the California Employment Development Department. The layoffs come much after the tech major scrapped its autonomous EV car project, as well as efforts to manufacture the next-generation display screens. Apple has declined to comment on the number of employees affected by the job cuts. And Microsoft has warned that China will attempt to disrupt elections in the U.S., India, and South Korea with AI-generated content. In a report, the tech giant has cautioned that Chinese state-backed cyber groups may target these high-profile elections with North Korea involved. The company also claimed that China did a test run in Taiwan using AI-generated content to sway voters away from a pro-sovereignty candidate. Well, now to a CNBC TV 18 exclusive. Hyatt has more rooms for growth in India as the country is under-hoteled. That's the word coming in from global hospitality major CEO Mark Hoplamazian. Speaking to CNBC TV 18, Hoplamazian said that Hyatt will open 50 new hotels in India in the next few years.
We have 50 hotels open. We have 50 hotels in the pipeline here in India. And so we will have an even broader platform of those 50 hotels that we are opening. Not all of which are being opened in 2024, by the way. These will open over the next several years. We're entering into 28 new markets in India, and that's really notable. If you ask me a decade from now, I would say India will be many-fold the size that we have today. And if you ask me what it would look like in 30 or 40 years, I think it really could easily be the second largest market we have in the company.
Well, the Congress party has released its election manifesto weeks ahead of phase 1 of polling. A nationwide caste census, legal guarantee for MSPs, stable personal tax rates, 50% government jobs for women are some of the promises. Abhimanyu Sharma filed this report on the key highlights from the manifesto.
Well, they've accused the BJP of ruining the economic state of India. That's the accusation which repeatedly has been leveled by the Congress party, something which is reflected even in the manifesto, which is an interesting mix of several new demands, several new promises which are being made by the Congress party, apart from the old promises which were a part of the UPA policy making regime. Now, if we speak about the promises which have been made, they have said that there would be a farm loan waiver for the farmers, which would be a relief for for them. They've also promised a legal guarantee for the minimum support price for crops for farmers. They've also said that they are going to simplify the personal income tax regime, and they are going to remove the angel tax in order to boost the economic growth in India. As far as other issues are concerned, they are also saying that they are promising that they would grant the legal status to civil unions of the LGBTQIA community. They are also promising 50% reservation for women in government jobs by 2025. They are saying that the promise includes an increase in reservation for several communities and removal of the 50% cap which currently exists on reservations which are being granted under the scheme of the Indian Constitution. Several other new promises as well as old promises have been made by them, which also includes, interestingly, removal of the Agnipath scheme for recruitment in the armed forces, which was repeatedly being opposed by the Congress party and other opposition parties. So a huge list of promises which have been laid out by the Congress, apart from accusations which have been leveled thick and fast, not just today but even in the past.
The broad theme of the manifesto is justice. Every aspect of justice has been threatened, weakened, diminished, and in some cases denied in the last 10 years, especially in the last 5 years.
इंडिया गठबंधन में डिसीजन लिया गया है कि हम मिलकर एक साथ आइडियोलॉजिकल चुनाव लड़ रहे हैं. चुनाव जीतने के बाद लीडर कौन होगा, प्राइम मिनिस्टर कौन होगा, वो पूरा का पूरा जो कोलिशन है वो मिलकर डिसाइड करेगा.
India will not tolerate those trying to foment terrorism. That's the response from Defence Minister Rajnath Singh after a report by The Guardian claimed that Indian government ordered assassinations in Pakistan as a part of a wider strategy to combat terrorism. India's External Affairs Ministry has denied The Guardian report, calling it false and malicious. Speaking to Rahul Joshi, the Defence Minister said that it is almost time for the Armed Forces Special Powers Act to be revoked in Jammu and Kashmir and let the police manage the law and order situation. He, however, said that the call on revoking AFSPA would be taken by the Home Ministry.
कोई भी टेररिस्ट हमारे पड़ोसी देश है, भारत को डिस्टर्ब करने की कोशिश करेगा जी, यहाँ पर आतंकवादी हरकतें करेगा तो उसका मुंह तोड़ जवाब देंगे. यदि वो भगकर पाकिस्तान में जाएगा तो पाकिस्तान में घुस कर मारेंगे. भारत बराबर अपने पड़ोसी देशों के साथ अच्छे रिश्ते बनाकर रखना चाहता है, चाहे कोई भी हमारा पड़ोसी देश है. और आज देखा होगा आपने, पास्ट हिस्ट्री उठाकर देखिए कि आज तक न तो हमने दुनिया के किसी देश पर कभी आक्रमण किया है अथवा आक्रमण की कोई पहल की हो, कभी नहीं किया, और न तो दुनिया के किसी देश की 1 इंच जमीन पर हम लोगों ने कभी कब्जा करने की कोशिश की है. यह भारत का चरित्र रहा है जी. लेकिन भारत को बार बार कोई आंख दिखाएगा, भारत में आकर आतंकवादी गतिविधियों को बढ़ावा कर देने की कोशिश करेगा तो उसकी खैर नहीं है.
कश्मीर, क्योंकि आपने अभी बात कही, तो क्या वहाँ पे AFSA हटाएंगे आप? AFSA को हटाएंगे आप?
अब लगभग समय आ गया है हाँ, कि हटाया जा सकता है, लेकिन अब तो गृह मंत्रालय को इस संबंध में फैसला करना पड़ेगा सारी रिपोर्ट आ जाने के बाद.
अमित शाह जी ने अभी कहा है कि जो है उसको हटाने की एक वो हो सकती है.
वही मैंने कहा ना, परिस्थितियाँ ऐसी बन गई हैं कि AFSPA हटाया जा सकता है, लेकिन इस संबंध में जो भी निर्णय करना होगा वो गृह मंत्रालय करेगा.
Well, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Business Hour. Thank you so much for watching. News and updates continue right here on CNBC TV 18.